Rtyuiope, uh, underrated video game slash SMT YouTuber, Let's Player, and now do you want to introduce yourself?
I mean, you did pretty much all that you needed to. I think that pretty much
Okay.
describes me perfectly.
Oh, cool. How are you doing tonight?
I got off work a couple hours ago, so I'm doing all right. Had a little can of baked beans because I'm poor. So
Yeah, that's basically my day too so far.
mm, under, understandable.
Let's we can dive right into it. I'm gonna be playing Persona 5 in the background here.
Hmm.
So you started YouTube 2 years ago with your first video being about Sly Cooper.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what made you decide to start your YouTube career with a video about that game?
Sly Cooper is probably my first game series I've actually loved. So that's where it basically came from. Um, this was like right when I was actually getting really into SMT and looking into the behind the scene things around this time. So I didn't really know too much about SMT at the time to make those big, long, drawn out videos. So I was like, heck, let's just do a Sly Cooper, man.
That's a good call because that's actually one of my favorite series ever too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just so good.
Yeah.
It was one of the first PS2 games I had was the first one, and it's still one of my favorite games. I still play through the entire thing every once in a while.
Yeah. I really wish they'd make a Sly 5 or something because the fourth one ended on a cliffhanger. I'm not a big fan about that.
Yeah. Um, I don't even remember the cliffhanger from the fourth one. I played
Uh,
that one the least amount, obviously, just because
Not very good.
it's been around. I mean, I think it was fine for the most part. It's just like it felt very fan servicey, I guess.
Yeah, it felt more like a fan fiction than an official game, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Uh,
It technically was. It was just
yeah. Well,
yeah.
well, without getting into too many spoilers, it basically ended with like Sly getting stuck somewhere. I'm not going to get into specifics, but it ended in a cliffhanger with like you don't know how Sly is going to get out of that situation, and then Sanzaru Games, the people who developed the fourth game were just like, nah, no, we're done. We're gonna make a Sonic Boom instead, and we all know how well that went. So
Yeah. um, so your videos are very highly produced and well made.
I don't know about that.
How do you plan to extend to a bigger audience?
Well, I've been starting to do that with my Rtyuiope Gameroom videos. Obviously, I could only make so much SMT content before the well ran dry. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop. SMT is still one of my favorite game series of all time, and as long as they keep making games, I'll keep making videos about it. But I just felt like I could expand a little bit and make uh, videos about video games that I also play other than SMT, because believe it or not, the only games on my shelf are not SMT related. Uh, Going for instance, the next month's video is going to be on Yakuza 0, which is a series that I've been getting into. So I can't wait to share that video. It's going to be featuring Super Kami Gaming, or just Kami as I know him from Twitter.
Yeah,
Most people know him from Twitter, and we're just going to be talking about Yakuza 0 for this month's video. So
that's cool. It's funny that I guess Yakuza is on everyone's brain right now because we're playing Persona 5 here right now.
hmm
Just kind of as like a intro, like what else are we gonna play as the first game for the RJ stream,
yeah,
and we've been talking about like yeah we're probably gonna do Yakuza 0 next actually.
have you had a chance to actually play it yet?
I haven't. The only Yakuza game I've ever played was the fourth one, and I only played that for I think like the first two segments of it. Where and what I mean by that is like that you play as the loan shark guy at first,
Yeah.
and then you play as the guy in jail,
hmm
and then I think I stopped there. But it was really cool, and I'm excited to play more of it.
Believe it or not, my first Yakuza game was Dead Souls, which is like the weird zombie spin-off game for the series, and I was not impressed, to say the least. And then Yakuza 0 came out, and all my friends on Twitter were talking about it. And seeing as it was a prequel to the whole series, I was like, ah, shoot, this sounds like a good place to put my foot through the door. And I fell in love. So now Yakuza is making its way to be one of my favorite game series of all time, slowly but surely.
Oh wow, it makes me really excited to start that actually now.
Yeah, there's a point of contentment on how to start the series. It's just really up to personal preference. This is a point I'll bring up in my video. Um, but some people recommend starting the series in release order. There's nothing wrong with that, because it makes more sense through the flow of gameplay, you know? Like, starting with, like, the really simplistic PS2 gameplay and then working your way up as it was released and getting better each time. But as someone like me who likes a more comprehensive story, I just had to play them in chronological order. But with that downside, I guess there is the fact that you're going to be fluctuating through different levels of gameplay polish. But I mean, if you can look past that, I mean, it's fine. I personally recommend playing it chronologically if you don't have that issue. But
Yeah.
yeah, some people do have the issue of fluctuating gameplay levels or whatever. So
Well, I think that issue is gonna solve itself soon enough. I think because, am I wrong, or they're making a Kawakami 2, which would be a remake of the second game, right?
yeah, so Yakuza 1 and 2 were released on PS2, so they
Yeah.
haven't aged very well, and seeing that Yakuza is getting such a huge following now, for some reason after the series has been like almost 10 years old, or actually is 10 years old now, it's finally getting a following. They decided to go back and remake 1 and 2, Kiwami 1, which is already out in America, and Kiwami 2, which
Yeah.
is out in Japan, but not out in America yet. It's a remake of 2, but that's also another point of content for the fan base, just for the fact that it cut some content from the original Yakuza 2. My stance on the whole matter is I think you should play both, personally, just to get the experience of both, because Kiwami 2, the remake, has some callbacks to Zero and Kiwami, which really builds the world, in my opinion. But then again, of course, they cut out a whole area and really cool soundtrack songs from the original version. So I think you should go back and play both, personally.
I'm definitely open to that for sure.
Yeah.
Do you want YouTube to become a full-time job, or do you see it more as a hobby?
Definitely a hobby. The way that I hope my future goes is I want to be a comic artist, you know, for I don't know, not really any particular publisher, but drawing's always been an interest of mine. You've seen my crappy art throughout the years on the channel. It's slowly but surely gotten better. But yeah, hope to finish community college, which is where I'm at right now, and see where that takes me. I hope to become a comic artist, although it's a very hard industry to get into. And you know, if all else fails, I guess I could fall back on my YouTube channel, but I don't know if that's a very viable option. But as long as I have free time, Rtyuiope's Gameroom's not going anywhere. I'll still upload content. It puts me on a schedule, keeps me organized, so it's definitely the more positives outweigh the negatives in that situation. So it's not like if I do become a comic book artist, I'm just gonna throw away the YouTube channel, because if I do still ending up having free time, then you know I'll still make videos for you guys.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I like having a lot of irons in the fire and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the ideal situation, but who knows? Who knows what the future holds, so.
Yeah. What kind of comics do you see yourself making? Original stories, or an artist, or both?
So I have two ideas for comics right now. One of which is already being made. That is, I'm actually making right now. It's called Unhinged. I made a few chapters for it, although their quality is not the best, since I did start it like a year ago, and that's when I was just learning how to draw digitally. And now that I've actually like developed the skill for drawing digitally, there's still more to learn, of course, but now that I've had a solid grasp on it, I'm going back and redrawing and rewriting the chapters I have done right now up until the point where I can finish what I call Volume 1 of the series, just so I can use that as a pitch or something like that to take to a comic comic publisher, whether it be Image Comics or Oni Comics, Oni Press. I hope it all turns out well, but there's no guarantee there. The rundown is it might interest some of you guys. Unhinged is basically inspired by things like Persona and SMT, but with my own personal twist on it. So basically, it's about this kid named Will who accidentally summons a demon in his high school, and instead of like being a serious series, perhaps it's more of a lighthearted comedy kind of thing that does have hints of seriousness in there and drama in there. Basically, it's if you take SMT, Persona, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Invader Zim, and you put that in a mixing pot, and that's what you get.
Okay, we'll definitely have to look into that. I know we enjoy most of those things. The ones I've seen, I like. So I'll definitely have to check that out soon.
Yeah. As Howard pointed out in the chat, it is more closer to Billy and Mandy though. But Invader Zim is definitely an inspiration to it, and that'll become more prevalent as it goes along. I don't mean to draw it out too long, but the second comic it's not really as developed as my previous one, Unhinged. Unhinged has like a whole outline for the whole story and everything. I have a pretty solid idea what I want to do with it, but the other series I wanted to take down is I haven't actually came up with a name of it yet, but it's about this little girl named Katria, however you want to pronounce that. Haven't really figured it out yet. She's just a little girl who lives in a village in feudal Japan, and her village gets burned down by a general who wants to take over all of Japan, and she runs away, and then she runs into Yasuke, who is an actual historical figure. He's the first and only black samurai, like African samurai, and I wanted to incorporate his story and make it more mythological. So it's going to be like a companion piece to Unhinged, where Unhinged is based off of more Judo-Christian lore. This Katria series I have planning, cooking in the back burner, is probably going to be about, Shinto religions like Izanagi, Izanami, Takemikazuchi, stuff like that.
Right. That also sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, that one's still in its very, very young infancy, so there's barely any story developed for that one, but I hope to make that a reality one day as well.
Yeah. Starting to, get the schemes within schemes and plans within plans for that one.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah. Back into your videos for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
How many hours does it take to research, write, and edit your videos?
Usually what happens is I go through, really obscure articles and things like that. What was it? There's a good blog by a guy named Ericer. If you follow any SMT stuff, if you dip your nose into that whole deeper end of the fan base from way back when, RJChat is a great guy who translates a lot of stuff. His opinions on the SMT series are less than favorable now. He likes the older stuff more, but he still translates some of the newer stuff, which I appreciate very much so. And RJChat, and he has a lot of very interesting articles he's translated and stuff like that. So whenever I'm researching for an SMT video, I definitely nosedive into those and try to find some good juicy bits while trying to make it into a basic summary you'd find on Wikipedia or something like that. So basically what I do is I write a basic script, full of those good old grammatical errors and things like that. And then my equivalent of Gecko, I guess, is Howard Heyman, who's there in the chat. He definitely takes over and does a quality check on it and adds some things I may have left out or switch some things out. Makes the script more comprehensible. And he definitely helps with the research process, adding things that I forgot to add. And then once that script's done, I do a 40 to 50 minute, what's it called? A 40 to 50 minute recording process, because I'm really bad at reading scripts, so I butcher the lines a lot. But after I'm done recording that, I just take it into Sony Vegas, and it takes about 3 to 5 hours around there to make a video. Nothing really more than that. The research process is really the long part.
Yeah. Um, Jumping back to a couple things you said is everyone should have a gecko.
Yeah.
Um, um, so we have some chat question.
hmm
Jumping back off of YouTube again and back into your comics. What are your inspirations for that series besides religious stuff? For instance, if Billy and Mandy is the aesthetic inspiration for Unhinged, what is the aesthetic inspiration for the Katrina story? Katria story, excuse me.
So for that, I really got my interest peaked with things like Samurai Jack, um, anime, because I did watch a lot of anime. Um, Anime like Vagabond and Berserk and things like that. Yasuke, who is the historical figure, I kind of took liberties with who he actually was and kind of made him more of like a guts type figure where he's like big and foreboding, but he's got a dad side on the inside. Um, but what really kicked it off is last year's release of Neo, and I played that game, and Yasuke is featured in the game, and I had no idea that there was actually like an African samurai, and I thought that was actually pretty interesting. I didn't know he was real until I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I was like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. So I decided to, look into that, and then it just kind of sprouted from there. Like, what if I made Yasuke? Because no one ever talks about him. Like, I haven't ever heard of Yasuke before. So I decided, like, what if I make the man more of a myth, and more of a legend, and tell a story? So Katria is more going to boil down to his story, I believe. That's where I want to take it. But Katria is going to be like the catalyst for the viewer to see what kind of adventure it's going to be.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I hope that one. I don't know if I want to make into a comic or maybe an animated series. Like I said, we'll have to see how my future goes. Hopefully it goes well, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, please keep us posted on that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, well, uh, I'm just gonna say, Gecko asks, will RJC have a role in the anime?
I could definitely make it happen. I don't see why not.
Okay. I would definitely do something like that. That sounds fun.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely
do you
throw you in
feel yeah? Do you feel your channel is underrated?
Ah, I don't like being entitled to anything really. There have been a few times where I've gotten frustrated. I put so much time and effort and use so many resources into my videos, like wasting Howard's time, taking up a lot of my time to make the videos, and sometimes only for like 100 or 200 views for videos that I'm really passionate about, like the infamous inside joke between me and Howard, the Interstellar video, a movie that me and Howard loved very much. We put a lot of effort into that video, and I think it's sitting at a comfortable 130 views.
Oh
and
no.
yeah, that kind of stuff brings the morale down. But I really try not to be like entitled about that thing. So, if is my channel underrated? Nah, probably not. I think it's perfectly fine where it's at. If I get more people, cool. If not, then I'm glad to entertain the people that I do have interested. So
That's a really positive attitude to have, I think.
yeah,
Because I was
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go on.
I was just saying I try to be positive with these kind of things. Like I said, it is disheartening, not to get a lot of views on your videos. But at the end of the day, you just got to remember that it's for fun. Like, I'm not doing this as a full-time job. I have a whole separate plan to do with my future. This is just something I want to do for me, my friends, and people who are interested in it. So that's usually what I do to perk myself up in those kind of situations.
What do you think of the future of YouTube? Do you see yourself going to any other platforms?
Um, a lot of people were talking about Twitch adapting their own or video streaming service. I was not aware of that until like very recently, and I think that's a very interesting platform to go ahead and dip my toes into. As soon as that opens, I'm probably going to upload a lot of my best videos right now, that I have right now to the thing, and hopefully being an early adapter expands my audience a little bit. But we'll have to wait and see. As for YouTube, I don't think I'll ever plan on quitting YouTube as it stands, even if Twitch does release a video streaming service. YouTube is still going to be where the mainstream is going to be, I believe. Twitch is going to be where all the hardcore, dedicated, like, gamer people are going to be going to, and that's where my biggest audience is. But if I still want to, like, grab the attention of some people who just aren't, all about gaming, I think I should still upload onto YouTube for their sake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been talking about a lot about YouTube, but our true love is what we make our videos about, being video games and SMT.
SMT.
How do you get introduced to SMT, and what drew you into it?
So this is a bit of a goofy story. So a long time ago, what happened is back when the PS2 just came out, is when I was a wee little lad. But the only games my parents could ever afford at the time were PS1 games from garage sales and stuff. So I always had friends over who'd bring over, like their Final Fantasy games, like Final Fantasy 7, 8. Eventually they brought over like 10 and 11. Not 10 and 11, 10 and 12. And I was just like, wow, those RPGs are pretty cool, but everyone plays those. So me being the pretentious hipster child I was, I guess, I wanted to find my own RPG series, and that's when I stumbled across Persona 2 Eternal Punishment for PS1. I bought a copy of that, and it's an old game, alright. I didn't play too much of it when I was a kid. It just kind of lost my attention. I never really, because like a lot of the themes of the story and stuff were way over my head at the time, so I just didn't really catch on to it. Then fast forward a long time later, when I'm like about 16 or 17, I moved to another state where my cousin is, and he has a copy of Persona 4. And I'm like, hey, I remember that Persona 2 game. I'll give this Persona 4 a shot. And then I was instantly in love. And then after Persona 4 was Persona 3, then Nocturne, then Digital Devil Saga, then the Arena games, and so on and so forth. Went back and revisited Persona 1 and 2. And I haven't looked back since,
Yeah, it always. I like hearing you lay that out too at the end. How it just like ramped up and just spirals out of control. Because I think that's what happens to all of us. That's what happened to me too.
Yeah. Start small, and then you're just like, wait, there's a whole ton of stuff. So.
Just what is this? And then this goes on forever.
Yeah. Also, he's right. I did not finish Digital Devil Saga. I need to go back to that. But that's like the only PS2 era SMT game I have not completed yet. I need to go back and beat that duology. But anyway.
I actually need to do that too. I always really enjoy that game, like while I'm playing it, and then something else comes out, or like, it just takes my attention away. But like, I really like those games.
Yeah, me too. It's
a really cool world.
Yeah, like, I know I don't mention it much anymore. Like, I feel like I've said all I needed to say about SMT on my channel and things like that. But and a lot of people are like, "Are you done with SMT?" And the fact of the matter is, no. I still love the series. It's probably one of my favorite series of all time. It's just with a series like that where you only get like one release every couple of years, and it's like so slow. Drip feed level of content. There's just so much you could talk about. But yeah, I definitely hold that series up there as one of my favorites. Top 3 easy. I'm looking forward to Deep Strange Journey next month if you're going to be picking that up.
Yeah, we're probably gonna have to, for sure. Do you own a Switch? How excited are you for SMT5?
Ooh, that is the game I'm looking forward to the most. But I've learned my lesson with Persona 5 hype. I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, I hyped this game up to be something it totally could never be, and now I hate it. I love Persona 5. It's still one of my favorite games of all time, of this generation, whenever. I hyped that game up a ridiculous amount on my channel. I made like a ton of analysis videos, all of that. And when it came out, I got what I wanted, even though it was definitely a lot less than what I was talking about. And I loved it. Persona 5 is great. I think it deserves all the praise it got, and then some. But I would definitely learn my lesson of getting overhyped with P5, because that game was announced back my first year of high school and didn't come out until senior year. And that really put into perspective what time I was wasting waiting for something that would eventually come. So for SMT5, while it is my most anticipated game, I'm trying not to think about it too much, just so I don't overhype myself and just burn myself out by the time it comes out. Like with Persona 5, where it's like, damn, I really spent that much time waiting for this? But yeah, SMT5 is definitely my most anticipated game coming out soon.
That's well said. My favorite, like just as an aside, but like related to what you were saying, like my favorite game of 2015 was Metal Gear Solid 5,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember the person I was living with at the time, they also played it, and they were like, "Man, there was all this like stuff about animals walking around your mother base," and he was like talking about all this stuff that like wasn't in the game, but I was like, the game is so good that why are you worried about like
Little minute
weird
details.
promotion? Yeah, so like I think that definitely happens. People have a tendency to get too excited about pre-release
Stuff.
video games. Yeah,
Yeah.
they get this idea of what it's gonna be, and then it's if it's not that, they get disappointed.
Yeah, I haven't played too many of the Metal Gear games. I think I've only played Metal Gear Solid for PS1 and, of course, Metal Gear Rising on PS3. But yeah, like when Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, of course, there was the initial praise, and then, the Bethesda effect kicked in, and everyone, like a few months later, was like, oh, Metal Gear Solid 5 sucks. But from what I've seen, it actually looks really, really good.
No, I mean it's like I said, it was my favorite game of the year that year, and I keep playing it like pretty often. It's really good.
Hmm.
Um, back to the on the rail of the interview questions is how do you feel about the Persona 5 SMT divide, and which side do you align with more?
You mean like those Persona fans that are like, Persona's not SMT?
Yeah.
Uh, Look, let me have a sit down with you lads. Okay, so if a game series has the exact same monsters, the exact same moves, very similar gameplay, similar story themes, developed in the same studio, maybe a different development studio, but developed in the same house, it's gonna be the same series. Cause see, by their logic, the Final Fantasy games like wouldn't even be like the part of the same series. Like 15 is vastly different than any of the previous installments, but that's still part of the Final Fantasy 15 or Final Fantasy series. So you can't just sit back and be like, "Oh, Persona got rid of the SMT name in its title. That means it's no longer SMT." Nah, that's a ton of hogwash right there. Persona is SMT at its core, at its heart. You can see that at how the developers see it, like in studio. They mention SMT and Persona as if they're the same series all the time. They compare each other because they are just spin-offs of each other. So I mean, there shouldn't really be any divide there. I think it's just where the problem stems, and this is gonna sound very like I'm trying to point fingers, and I'm not. It's understandable these people, some of these folks get their point of view from, but a lot of them seem to just like hate the SMT elitism, which is perfectly understandable. Elitism in any fan base is terrible, and I don't think it helps anyone. But they hate the SMT elitism so much that they just want to differentiate Persona as much as possible, just so that they don't feel persecuted for liking Persona more. But at the end of the day, the advice I want to give you is: yes, they're part of the same series. No, there's no wrong answer. You can like one or more than the other. One or other more than the other.
Yeah. Very well said, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry to get a little ranty there, but this is just a topic that's really bothered me. It's just like people sitting there and claiming Persona's not SMT when in fact it is. It was since its conception, and it still is now. Until Persona gets rid of all the demon designs from SMT, gets rid of all the move names, gets rid of the gameplay, it is still going to be SMT in my eyes.
No, I agree with you. I think that's like I said, just well said. That's nail on the head right there.
Yeah.
um, we got a chat question here.
Mm.
Bepsy asks, off topic, uh, what did you think of the last Berserk manga chapter?
The last Berserk manga chapter, I don't want to get into spoilers because it's my buddy Howard Heyman, and I'm sure a ton of you people in this chat have not have not caught up in Berserk, but holy shit. Finally, Meyer is doing something with this story. He's actually picking it up. He's actually doing something with it, and I'm giddy about it. I'm actually giddy that we're getting something, and it's nuts. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'd love to go into more detail, but just for spoilers' sake, I'm not going to delve into it too much. But if you're not caught up with Berserk, do it. You're doing yourself a disservice.
I've heard that series is really good, but I've never looked at it myself.
It is very good, but you gotta have the stomach for it. It is a series that involves a lot of gore, a lot of suggestive themes. I'm not gonna get too much into it. There's definitely a lot of things that if you're squeamish about, I don't think you should particularly get into it. But if you can look over those things, oh my gosh, dude, one of the best dark fantasy series out there. I'd venture to say it's better than the world that the Lord of the Rings or any of that have built up over the years. I think Berserk is just such a rich world that they've built, or that Meyer has built, and I love it so much. I wish he would finish it in my lifetime, but it's probably not going to happen.
Well, I'll have to look into that too. That's pretty high praise, I think.
It's probably the best manga out there, and that's saying a lot.
What is your favorite all-time Persona game and why?
It's kind of tough to say. I like all the Persona games pretty equally. There's different games that have different merits to them. Gameplay, aesthetic, music, not music. Gameplay, aesthetic-wise, Persona 5, hands down, the most superior most superior Persona game in the whole Persona repertoire. I love the aesthetics. I love the art style, the refined art style Soejima finally put out. I love the music is very good. I love the gameplay. The gameplay is super refined. The only thing that's holding it back is the story. I'm not one of those people who think Persona 5 has one of those very predictable, boring stories. There were some twists in that game I did not see coming. And I love Persona 5's story a lot more than many people did, but its story is definitely not perfect. I'd say my favorite Persona in terms of story is definitely Persona 2, the Persona 2 duology. There's just so much symbolism and themes that they stuffed into the two games there that just cannot be ignored. But otherwise, basically out of everything else, Persona 5 definitely takes the cake for best Persona game, minus the story.
Yeah, I've heard that praise for Persona 2 having the best story. That might have to be the next Persona game we play on here, because I've never gotten all the way through that one. I've started it and I thought it was really good.
Mm-hmm. Just be forewarned, the gameplay's terrible.
The gameplay's well, we would probably most likely be doing the PSP version. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Not particularly. It's still the same gameplay. I don't know. I think they might have lowered the random encounter rate. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what they did. But yeah, the whole thing with the Persona 2 duology is that their story's so good. The music, the themes, everything about it's so good. It's just the gameplay is so abysmal. I do not blame you for just looking at it and being like, I'm not touching that game. If they were to remake a Persona 2, or if they were going to remake a Persona game, I know a lot of people want 3 and 4, but honestly, Persona 1 and 2 needed a lot more than 3 and 4 do.
I would be really excited for that kind of thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the Persona spin-offs?
You mean like the arena games?
Yeah, like that. The next question kind of goes hand in hand with this. Is how excited are you for the new dancing games as well?
Okay. The spin-off games I love. I adore them for what they are. The arena games, I think, are probably some of the most quality spin-offs of any game series out there. They're just very interesting and fun and expand the world of Persona. I know they kind of jumped the shark and be a little more anime-esque by like introducing the whole Shadow Operatives angle and adding all this like side stuff that just seems out of place for like the grounded stories of Persona. But as like an expansion side story for the whole Persona universe, I think the arena games are very good. Excuse me. I feel like they could definitely expand on the whole Shadow Operatives by reintroducing characters from Persona 1 and 2, bring them back, make it feel all connected like it should be. But as for the dancing games, I love them. They're fun. They're interesting. They shouldn't be canon. I know Persona 3 and Persona 5 Dancing All Night are not canon, but Persona 4 Dancing All Night should not have been canon. I know that Atlas sure put a lot of time and effort, P Studio more specifically, put a lot of time and effort into that game. And they really wanted to make it worth something to the series, but it takes place after the epilogue of Persona 4, so it's really confusing how they just go back to their previous looks despite them changing their appearance and stuff from how you last saw them. And if it just wasn't canon, I feel like it would be perfectly harmless, but just as it stands, Persona 4 is just kind of like the gray sheep or the black sheep of the series. A series of spin-offs. Persona 3, Persona 5 Dancing All Night, definitely excited for, can't wait for those. I hope that means we're going to get a Persona 3 remake, hopefully, please.
Yeah.
But as for Persona Q, I could not be any less interested. I got towards the end of Persona Q, and I just decided the game was not worth it. It's canon, but it completely contradicts itself by erasing all the events that happen in it. So it's what's even the point? The gameplay's not that fun. I was never really a fan of the Etrian Odyssey series. I know that might get me killed, but Etrian Odyssey is very bland to me. I understand the appeal. It's not bad. It's just not my cup of tea. And integrating that with the whole Persona formula is just, I could pass.
I remember I really liked that game. It just, there was a certain point where I just couldn't figure out one of the puzzles in it, and then I gave up on it.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't even a good difficult puzzle. It was just a navigation puzzle, and then I don't even remember. It was in the scary dungeon where
oh yeah,
things would jump up at you, and that made me mad.
Yeah.
Well, you may have already answered this question. Would you play Persona 3 Velvet on Vita? And do you like my idea for it?
I like your idea, definitely. I just think that the Vita is dead. No offense to anyone who plays Vita. I have Vita TV, so I definitely love the Vita and what it has to offer. It's just that in its current state, how PlayStation is treating it, I just don't think Vita would be the preferable place to put it. But I mean, if you put it on, if PlayStation releases another portable handheld console, or they just release it on PS4, I think it's golden right there. No pun intended, Persona 4 golden, but
yeah.
I think your idea is spot on. I just think it should be on PS4 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would accept it on PS4 at this point. I think the Vita was a little bit more alive when we made that video and when we had that idea, but I think now, how old is that video, Gecko? Year and a half or so?
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. Now, at this point, it's yeah, I guess PS4 is fine.
I mean, Metroid brought up a good point, though. Catherine Full Body is coming to Vita, so I mean, there might be hope. But as for if it is going to be on the Persona 5 engine, I'm not exactly sure if it'll be coming to Vita, just because I think that the Persona 5 engine just wouldn't work very well with the Vita engine, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the whole in and outs of the whole Persona 5 engines, but that's just my best guess right there.
Yeah, I don't know at all how video games work, to be honest, so maybe if they could do that, that would be awesome, but if they did it with the golden engine, that would be just as good, I think. Which character from Persona do you relate to the most?
Shoot. Everyone, there's always that question. I don't know if this is later in your questionnaire, but there's always that question is, what Arcana are you? And of course, I'd like to be something cool like the Death Arcana or something like that. The real answer is probably going to be Magician, just for the fact that I probably relate most with people like Yusuke, Yusuke, or Yosuke, my bad, not Yusuke. Yosuke, Ryuji, people like that. Is Ryuji even Magician? I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. Sorry.
Ryuji's Chariot, and so is Gecko's Magician.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going off right now. But Yosuke for sure. Just people like that. Mishima's magician, right?
Yes.
Yeah. People like Majima and Yosuke are just people I relate to the most just because, I try to be the fun and interesting guy in the group, but I usually end up being annoying. So that's probably the characters I relate to the most, because the magician characters always seem to be like that guy who's very endearing, but everyone finds annoying, and it's like, oh. Oh yeah, Morgana. Yeah, Morgana's the endearing, cute one of the group, but everyone finds him annoying, so.
What do you think the future will hold for Persona and SMT? Do you think Persona games will remain in the formula that seems to have been perfected with Persona 5? Do you hope they get more obscure or more mainstream accessible? And what about SMT?
Okay, so this is gonna be a long response.
We got till midnight, so we can.
Okay, cool. This is gonna be a long one, so I'm gonna separate this into two different ones. For the first, I'm gonna cover the future of SMT because this one's gonna be a little shorter. SMT, it's doing all right. In Japan, it's doing all right. In America, it's doing okay. I think, however, Atlas has finally gotten the taste of that sweet, tasty, delicious Persona money, and they're like, "Damn, dude, why are we pouring resources into that SMT series when we could just be making more Persona games?" So I think if Atlas still has their heads about them, they'll keep making SMT games. Also, someone in the chat corrected me. Mishima's the Moon Arcana. Sorry, I'm not thinking right now. But anyway, my point still stands about the magicians. But back on topic. I feel like SMT5 is SMT's last chance. In terms for, not forever, but for a little while. I feel like it's going to be the next Nocturne, in the sense that SMT 1 and 2, SMT If, Persona 1 and 2, the Devil Summoner games, when they all came out, they did moderately well. They were cult classics. They were well loved. They did well enough to keep Atlas afloat. And Nocturne was their hope for the next big game that's going to knock everyone's shoes off and going to dethrone Final Fantasy as the household known RPG series. And of course, we all know that is not the case. Nocturne did horribly in at least America. I'm not sure about Japan. It did really bad over here. It did well critically, and fans loved it. But sales-wise, it did not do very well at all in the slightest. So they put SMT on the back burner on a little hiatus for a while, and we didn't get another true SMT game, like a mainline title, until about Strange Journey. Until about Strange Journey. It did well enough for the series. Nocturne, as Howard brought up, did well enough to keep the series afloat, but I don't think it did well enough, as of course it led to Cozy leaving, and it changed the whole management in Japan and things, or the whole management in Atlas. Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic here. But I told you it'd be a long conversation. There's a lot of
That's fine.
There's a lot of inner workings and politics to this whole thing. But Nocturne, after Nocturne came out and kind of didn't do as well as they hoped, they put SMT on the back burner, at least mainline on the back burner, until about Strange Journey. They were always had SMT on the mind, but they weren't really sure how to approach it, so they came out with Strange Journey in the end. And that did all right, and they decided to pursue an SMT4, which did really well, because it was one of the best-selling RPGs on 3DS, and then Apocalypse came out, and that kind of underwhelmed a lot of people in terms of sales. So I think we're going to see a repeat in history here if SMT5 doesn't shape up to be something enough for the mainstream audience to grasp onto, per se. I think this is just the last chance for SMT. I'm sorry, I'm making a lot of work here for you guys to cut out when you edit this in the post, because I'm just pausing here a lot. But I'm just trying
No, it's fine. Don't worry about that. Don't worry
to.
about
I'm just
that.
trying to collect my thoughts with this because it is a tough topic to go over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a big question. You can take your time with it for sure.
There's a lot of things that I don't know about the inner workings and the politics within Atlas headquarters. I don't work there. I don't claim to know how it works there. I don't know anyone who works there.
Yeah,
But this is just what I've observed from the research I've done. So Nocturne did all right. Not as well as it could have, and I'm afraid that's what the fate that SMT5 will face. You know, like SMT5 has the chance to do something great because it has something that Nocturne before it didn't have. Because like Persona 3 came out after Nocturne, so of course, so now that the Persona series has become such a household name now, and it's definitely added a lot of clout to the SMT name. I think SMT5 holds a very serious chance. But there's one key thing that I think will determine whether or not it will do good, and that's what if it will release in a reasonable amount of time. I know Atlas loves taking their time on making games. That's fair. A lot of time spent on a game just means more quality most of the time.
yeah,
And so I feel like they're trying to make it the best that it can be, but they have to jump on it soon. They are on a kind of a time crunch here because the Switch is a very popular game console. A lot of developers took note of that. So a lot of developers are going to start developing games for the Switch. I expect in this E3 and the coming months, we are going to see a lot of JRPGs, a lot of RPGs, a lot of game series being announced for Switch. And it's just going to take away all of that all the interest that SMT5 has built up. See, what SMT5 had going for it is it's one of the first games announced for Switch, and it was the JRPG. So there wasn't many of those announced for the Switch at first. That's why I believe Xenoblade Chronicles 2 did so well. Xenoblade, the Xeno Saga series, or the Xeno series, has done very fairly well in its whole tenure. But Xenoblade Chronicles 2 did very well, and I believe that's because it was one of the first JRPGs on the Switch. And I think that SMT5 could see that same kind of reception, because a lot of those Nintendo fanboys, people who bought a Switch and just want to justify their purchase and things like that, will see SMT5 as like a quality, full-length game and be like, hey, I want to play that game. But they have to jump on it fast, because like I said, Activision's going to start making games, Bethesda's going to start making games for it. I mean, Bethesda already has. All these things, and Atlas, I don't think is fully conscious of that, because Atlas, as a company right now, only thinks about Japan. They have some consideration for the West, but right now, all that matters to them really is the sales from Japan, and that's really unfortunate, considering that Persona 5 did so well here in America.
yeah.
Yeah,
They certainly got to strike while the iron's hot, I think.
yeah, and that's really just my whole point. I think it can do well. They have to release it in a reasonable amount of time, or else it's not going to do well, and only the fans will buy the game. And while there are a lot of us, especially new fans, thanks to Persona 5, they'll see SMT5 and be like, "Oh, this is like Persona on the Switch." There will be those people, but to get that whole wide audience of someone or some people who just want a new game to play on Switch, it has to be soon. And I know that they're trying their best. I want to give them the time that they need to make the game as good as it can be. I know the development for it's going a little faster since they're using the Unreal Engine, but they just have to get their gears kicked in, and they have to release the game in a reasonable amount of time, not just in Japan, but here in America as well, because whether or not Atlas wants to believe it, America is probably going to be its biggest market in the next couple of years, especially if Persona keeps going with it. And that's where I can transition over to the Persona side of things. What was the question about the Persona half? Sorry, I just got so deep into that whole SMT talk.
It was. Do you think Persona games will remain in the formula that seemed to have been perfected with Persona 5? Do you hope they get more obscure or more mainstream accessible?
I hope Persona stays. I'm not talking about popularity. In terms of quality, the way the gameplay is, the way that everything is. I hope it stays in that style of quality, if not better. Uh, I think Persona 5 is probably one of the most quality games I've ever played in terms of presentation. The presentation for the story, the visuals, the music, the gameplay, all fantastic. I loved every facet of it. It had what it took to be a mainstream game, and it pulled it off. It pulled it off, and I couldn't be any more happy. And there are some of those people who like, I don't want to really pick a side here, and I don't want to delve into this topic too deep, just because it will bring about a whole nother conversation that I just don't want to get into. But due to the popularity of Persona 5, there have been some issues that have arose from the fan base, especially the new fans, that believe that Persona, the directors, the artists, everything, Atlas as a studio, have it out for people, particular people, you know. Some people, like, I've seen all of it. Like, some people like, and I'm not trying. This isn't my point of view. I'm not trying to make these people invalidate these people's opinions, because everyone's entitled to their opinions. I'm just stating what I know, or from what I've seen. So, a lot of people are like, Soejima and Hashino are sexist because they only care about making cute character designs for the girls, or stuff like, what else have I heard before? Some really ridiculous stuff too. Like, again, not to invalidate anyone, but I've heard people make the claim that Atlas is just trying to like get in that sweet waifu money with the new Yakuza costume DLCs for Persona 5, that only the female characters get the shirtless characters or whatever from Yakuza, and I don't particularly agree with those statements, and that's one of the downsides with Persona becoming more mainstream, is you're going to get those kind of people who just want to find a problem with everything, and that's fine. That's their opinion, even though I might not particularly agree to it. I don't think Atlas personally means any harm by it. There's certainly some things Atlas should consider, especially when adapting to different markets, things to look out for politically and things like that. And but I do think sitting back and accusing them of things isn't going to help anything. Just give them your criticisms, and hopefully they'll listen. But that's one of the things that is the drawback about Persona becoming more mainstream, is that these issues, if you want to call it that, have been around in the series for a while now, and now it's just getting exposed, and that's fair. But at the same time, Persona also, when it became mainstream, also attracted a lot of positive fans, which you don't hear about too much, just because of the fact that a lot of those people who have the opinions that Atlas is just a terrible company tend to be the vocal minority of the matter. But a lot of the new fans love Persona, and were like, wow, I haven't played a game like this in so long. Like, this is just an interesting RPG. I thought RPGs were dead, and things like that. And Persona not only just got them interested in the Persona series, but a lot of people I know got started with Persona, started looking into other RPGs that have come out recently, like the Yakuza series, the Nier series, the Drakengard series by extension, Nier, series like that, and like, wow, I didn't know all these quality games existed. And it's like, yeah, they have, and it's cool, because I feel like Persona, it's not entirely Persona's doing. I believe that Yakuza and Nier all have their own individual merits that attracted their own certain fan base, but all three of those series and a couple more have just finally got the attention of the mainstream audience and brought all those new fans into the series. And while a lot of people might see that as a negative, as for the aforementioned reasons being like, oh, well, I hate Atlas, they're terrible, at the same time, it brings a lot of new fans in who were looking for a new experience, a new game to play, a new something for them to try. And I feel like Persona 5, Yakuza, and Nier all bring that. And of course, I'm not mentioning all the JRPG series. This is just some of the more popular ones that have just caught the attention and revitalized the market, I'd say. And I know that's a bold claim, revitalizing the whole gaming market, but I just feel like they revitalized at least the Japanese game market. But,
yeah, that's a good analysis, I think.
Yeah, that was like a video length worth discussion. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That was great.
Also, I'd like to mention, like I said, if any of you guys in the chat feel that way about Atlas. Like, they're trying to, um, do these bad things. You're entitled to your opinion. Don't let anyone invalidate your opinion. If that's what you believe, stand by it. Just know that, from what I understand, from what I know, Atlas doesn't have any malicious intent. It's just the culture in Japan. It's slightly different than how it is in America. If anything, I wouldn't point your fingers toward Atlas. I'd probably point your fingers more towards the culture of Japan. Um, yeah, just don't hold it against Atlas as if they're like trying to hate on the LGBT community, because that's not true at all. Atlas actually does have some very interesting LGBTQ Q characters throughout the series. Some underrepresented groups that are in the series as well. I know they have made some tasteless jokes in Persona 5 and some of the more recent games, but it's just a different culture. Just let them know your complaints. Just don't feel entitled to it. You're entitled to your opinion, but just don't expect change to come around because you feel a certain way. That's just all I wanted to add to it.
Okay. Howard asks in the chat, when will you finish Ruby Quest?
So, in research to make my comic better, I wanted to look at certain web comics and things like that, easily accessible comics that I could look towards to make my comic better. One of such was Howard recommended to me was Ruby Quest. And so what happened was, while I was in the middle of moving process, I was living in an apartment with my parents, and he recommended Ruby Quest to me. And I sat there every night, like before bed. I'd read a few chapters and then go to bed. But then I graduated before I could finish it, and then just work consumed my life, and then college came around, and I just haven't had time to actually sit down and complete Ruby Quest. Still on the plate, still playing on it. I was almost done, and I will finish it soon, I promise.
Good. What do you think makes a video game objectively and subjectively good? For example, do you like a perfect mix of story, gameplay, and audio visuals, or is there an aspect that you look for in most games?
Are you asking just my subjective view on it?
Yeah.
What makes a game good? A whole matter of things. If you watch my reviews or retrospectives, you probably catch on to those. Those include what I call the major tenets of a game: the art style, the gameplay, the story, the music, and the level design, which kind of ties back into the gameplay. So, those are my major tenets of what makes a game good. Of course, I value some of those tenets more than others, such as I definitely prefer art style over a lot of the other tenets. I know it's a bad choice, considering there are a lot of games out there that are really good that have terrible art styles, and vice versa. Very pretty games with terrible gameplay. I wouldn't call it necessarily terrible, but like I covered the Gungrave series, very favorite series of mine, one that's dear to me, and the art style to that game is just phenomenal, man. It's great, I love it. But the gameplay is less than stellar, and I definitely let my opinion of the game get a little clouded and shrouded by the whole art style of the game. But for me, it has to meet those major tenets. It has to have like some sort of like positivity towards those major tenets for me to consider it good. Like I said, I value some tenets more, like art style, sometimes music. But that's pretty much it. What I look for in a good game, as long as it has a decent and higher for at least all of those tenets, I think the game is usually good. I hate to say it, a lot of people really like the Cold Steel series or the Tales of series. I cannot get into those because the art style is so bland and boring. Same reason for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's just so, as Travis would put it, moe, that I can't exactly get into it. And that's not to call the gameplay bad, that's not to call the story bad, that's not to call the direction bad. That's just, like I said, I value art more than most things. And if your game looks like your typical forgettable season of anime, I am just going to skip on it. But great mentions, such as the Persona series, great art style, distinct. Sure, if you look at it first glance, it looks like anime. But if you actually take a look at Soejima's art, it has its own merits that make it stand out. Kazuma Konako's art style from the earlier SMT games, very different. I love it. What was it? The Danganronpa series. I'm not personally a fan of the Danganronpa series. I know you are, RJC. I'm just not a visual novel guy, but God, the art style in that series is actually pretty interesting, and I like it a lot just for that fact. And the same can be said about realistic-looking games, where I was like, I don't like the Tales of series or the Cold Steel series just because it looks like anime. That can apply to realistic-looking games. If they try to go for a more realistic approach, not all the time, but most of the time, I'll be like, yeah, I'll pass on that. Something like the Call of Duty games and stuff like that, where they just have no visual flair whatsoever.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. Where like just even in this game, for instance, it's so ridiculously stylish. It's just a treat to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Just for example, how much time do you spend in a video game?
As much time as I need. Persona 5 came out to be like 90 hours. I don't usually limit myself on a game. I sit there and play it until I think I'm done, and then I complete it. Of course, I beat the game. I don't ever pick up a game and quit playing it. That really irks me. I don't have OCD, but it's kind of like that OCD feeling where it's like, oh, I gotta complete it. Exactly like if you've seen my Ni no Kuni video, I mentioned that it took me 5 years to complete Ni no Kuni. But then, yeah, the reason why I didn't drop it is because I was so adamant on actually beating it. So all I needed was the incentive of Ni no Kuni 2 to come out soon. That I was like, okay, I'll sit down, I'll beat Ni no Kuni. I don't regret that as much. I think Ni no Kuni is a great game. So, as if, how much time I spend on a game, I mean, as long as I need to beat
That's admirable.
Yeah, I don't usually like to drop
I'm really bad at I'm really bad about dropping games and stuff.
Yeah.
Now that you're older, do you feel video games are sometimes more like work than play due to the amount of time they can take?
Not exactly. I live a pretty lonely lifestyle. I hate to say that. Like I said, I am like the Magician Arcana, where I feel like I annoy most people. I know some of my friends will be like, "Oh no, dude, you're fine," but I just it's a personal thing where I feel like I do annoy people. So video games are an escape, kind of. I still am aware of reality. It's not like a drug or anything where I have an addiction to it. But it's just if I just need some time to myself, video games are definitely a place where I can just focus on a good story, some good gameplay, just let it ease. I've never really felt like a game was a chore, except for maybe Ni no Kuni at first. That's why it took so long. But after I actually sat down and beat Ni no Kuni, I ended up loving it. There are definitely some games out there that feel more like a chore than actual fun to play. But most of the time, I don't. If I play a game I enjoy, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. I feel like I'm having some actual legit fun with it.
That's good. I still have that feeling too. It's time to kick back and take care of this one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Going back to the beginning, what was your first console and how did you acquire it? Any good stories or memories?
My first console. This is one thing that really made me want to start a YouTube channel in the first place. Is all these YouTubers, all these video game YouTubers, you know what they all have in common? They grew up with a Nintendo console. So their opinions are always super biased on Nintendo stuff. Oh, they'll compare it to Mario 64. Oh, they'll compare it to Legend of Zelda. Nothing wrong with that. Those are great games. But it's their perspective is always from someone who grew up with an N64 or Super Nintendo or GameCube or something. And I think that's so overdone and boring. No offense to those people. They're interesting people and they have interesting videos. But it's dude, come on. Is there no PlayStation boys here? So I grew up with a PlayStation 2, but mostly PS1 games, of course, like I mentioned. And, yeah, I just felt like I could add something original to it, because most of the games that I would talk about are from PlayStation library, such as Sly Cooper and the SMT series, because at the time, a lot of the SMT games that I played were on the PS2. I know a majority of the series, I guess, is on Nintendo consoles, but the majority of the ones I played at the time were on PS2. But yeah, my first console was PS2. Any fond memories? Uh, yeah. I have this friend named Colton. We used to live close to each other, not too close, but close enough that we could hang out. He'd always bring a new game over because he always got new games all the time, and we'd always play them. I watched him play like God of War, the original Mafia game, stuff like that. And those are some of my most fond memories. Colton was a great friend. He's not dead or anything. I just haven't talked to them. I haven't talked to them in a while.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and those are some great memories I cherish. So if you're listening, Colton, thank you for those memories and the PS2 memories that you brought to me. Those were some of my most cherished ones. But yeah, just, being a little kid, hanging out with my friend, playing some games on the PS2. You can't go wrong with that. That's just like, that's how it was most weekdays, and I can't ever look back on those.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
Let's see. What difficulty do you play video games on in general?
Okay, so this ties back into, or this doesn't really tie back into anything in particular, except that I really like to be immersed into games. So, this is gonna sound like really normie-ish, so excuse me here. But if a game, if it immerses me more, if I feel like the main character should be extremely OP, I'll play it on very easy mode. For instance, what is it? I'm trying to think of a good example. Yakuza, for example. Kiryu is an unstoppable tank. No one can stop him. So I feel like the only way to get the true immersive experience of Yakuza is to play on very easy mode and smash all your enemies like they're nothing. And I know a lot of people are like, wow, you're not even challenging yourself. But it makes me feel like I'm more into the story and feel like more immersed. Because you see in the cutscenes like Kiryu just beating up like 40 dudes, and it's like, well, why can't I do that in the gameplay? So, of course I dial it down to very easy mode. But in games where I feel like you're not supposed to be overpowered, games like the S&T series or things of that nature, I always go for the harder difficulties, just because I feel like the whole point of the S&T series is to be, just a normal person facing supernatural threats and extra-human threats, superhuman threats, or whatever. And there should be some challenge to that. But, so I fluctuate just depending on my immersion. I base the difficulty more off of immersion, I guess, just to make it simple.
I really like that answer a whole lot, actually. I find myself doing weird things like that too. Mostly with like character customization. Where like just for as a random example, I'll play like Grand Theft Auto 4. And I'll be like, oh, at this point Nico is in this kind of state of mind, so he's gonna wear like the like, this is what he wears during this part of the game.
Yeah.
And like just as a random example, but like I've never heard of that as like a difficulty thing. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's just a little immersion thing, and I know it'll be called a casual for it because like, oh, you're not challenging yourself, but it just makes me feel like the story's more accurate to what's actually going on in the gameplay, is if I just like scale the difficulty to what I should be expecting. But that's just me.
I disagree entirely. I feel like that's the only way to play. I admire that 100% actually.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a stance that not many people share, but that's just my own personal quirk with those kind of things.
Stepping outside of video games, do you have any other hobbies like sports?
No. Okay, so sports is a no. But yes, I do have.
That's just an example. You can talk about whatever.
I know. Yes, I like to draw. Obviously, make comics. It's probably my first love, drawing. Art is my first love before video games. But other than video games and art, I also like to watch movies, analyze movies. I've done a few videos on movies, as the aforementioned Interstellar video. Please go watch that. It was a video I put a little love and care into, please. And yeah, I work at a movie theater, so of course I get to see a lot of movies, and movies are another thing I like to really put my time into. TV shows, not so much. TV shows just take too much time that I could be playing video games. What I like about movies is they're 2 hours, they're done. So I can just watch a movie, enjoy it, be done, do something else. But with TV shows, you gotta sit there and commit. The only TV shows I watch are cartoons. Makes me sound very young and childish, I know, but I really like cartoons. Current one I'm watching is Steven Universe. There's a new one that's been announced for a while, but just got a trailer today, called Has Been Hotel. Looks very interesting. The other TV shows I really only watched are The Whitest Kids You Know, Trailer Park Boys, and what else? Something else. And anime series, I guess. Anime series are like the only other ones that I ever really commit a lot of time to. But yeah, my other big hobby is I love my bird. My girlfriend has a bird. I have a bird. I love birds. And I like Gunpla models. I like building little Gundam statues. Because when I was a kid, I loved Bionicles. Bionicles were the shit. They still are the shit. Problem with Bionicles is that they don't make them anymore, and they're really expensive. And I would look like a total weeb if I had Bionicles on my shelf. But you know, having a Gundam looks a lot cooler. So I got into Gundam building. Scratches the same itch as building a Lego set, except a lot cheaper. And personally, I think they look cooler. And that's pretty much it for hobbies. I really like that. Oh, I guess I also play Yu-Gi-Oh! From time to time. Not too often, because I usually don't have someone to play with, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is something I was into for a long time.
That's cool. Gecko and I are pretty into Yu-Gi-Oh! Too.
Mm-hmm.
Gecko more so than me, but I like I have a Morphtronic deck that I haven't touched in a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have like a Skull Servant deck, a Dark Magician deck, and an Exodia deck.
Yeah. Like I know I am not familiar with a Skull Servant deck.
It's
also
it's very, it can be very mean, but anyway.
Also, speaking of your bird, the post has a bird. His name is Cholo.
Oh, what kind of bird?
It is a African gray.
Oh, that's cute. I have a little turquoise conure. Her name's Aqua, after Aqua from the Kingdom Hearts series. She's just a little blue-green sheep conure. I got her like a month and a half ago. She's very shy still. She doesn't like my hand. If I try to go close to her, she freaks out and tries to fly away. So, I have to work on that. My girlfriend's bird, named Gus, he's a super cutie. As soon as we got him, he loved us. And he's a pineapple conure. He's just a green cheek that's like yellow, green, and red. He's very nice, very friendly. Yeah. Likes to sit on top of people's heads. But yeah, that's my birds. I love my birds.
Yeah. I don't get along with Cholo very well. He doesn't like me.
Yeah, birds can be very particular.
Especially Cholo. Do you like real life school?
I feel like school can be very boring. It feels like I'm there and I'm wasting my time. I know that's a sentiment a lot of people share, and it's just because, you don't like school. But high school, I understood the point of it. It was understandable. It was fun. Now I'm in college, and I mean, it's not as annoying as high school, but I just wish that, I could go ahead and start making comics if I wanted to, but, you can't. In this world, you gotta spend several $100,000 to get the job that you want, that you never know if you could pay that back. I'm getting existential now, I'm sorry, but, the whole topic of school is a very, very depressing one with me.
Well, I understand for sure. I didn't like high school either.
Hmm.
uh, we have a recurring question that we're gonna be doing. Uh, we asked JohneAwesome this, and now it's your turn.
Hmm.
Uh, what does your dad and or your family think of your YouTube video game comic dedication?
Oh God. Okay. So, um, I tried to keep my YouTube channel on the down low for the longest time. I, you know, I wanted my content to get out there, but it's something I am not particularly fond of sharing with my family, for the sole fact that my family thinks that video games are a big old waste of time. And so when the inevitable time did come, my dad confronted me one day, and he's like, "So you have a YouTube channel?" I'm like, "Ah, shit, this is it." And he was like, "You know, are you sure you want to do this whole YouTube thing? You could really like mess up your life, or if you say one thing wrong, you're gonna end your whole career." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware. I should be careful what I say, what I do online." And he just gave me the whole, "Be careful what you do on the internet" type thing. But now that I'm an adult, I think I have it pretty well under control. As for the comic side of things, um, they're supportive of that more than my YouTube channel. Um, Drawing's been something I've always done since I was a little kid, and I was going to be a computer programmer for the longest time. But I took like 4 years of computer programming classes in high school, and after I finished up honors computer programming, actually I think it was like computer programming AP or something like that in senior year, I was like, programming sucks. This is boring. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. This is the worst thing ever. So I was like, well, I'm kind of at a loss, because that was what I was spending most of my time doing, and was trying to build a career around. And then I just picked up a pen and pencil, started drawing again, and then here I am. So
Well, I think you made the right choice for sure.
thanks. I'm trying. I'm trying. We'll see what happens. But the whole
Yeah.
art industry is kind of hard to get into, so I'm not exactly sure what the future may hold. But I hope it's positive.
And it's kind of funny thing about your dad telling you the like, oh, be careful about what you say and do on the internet thing. The only older person who knows about my channel that I know in person is the post,
Yeah.
and I have to tell him after videos sometimes, like, you really gotta not say things like that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and I get it. Especially like sharing my opinion with the whole, persona controversy like earlier. I know that's gonna make some people dislike me, but I
uh,
I just try to stay positive about those kind of things. Um, you know, uh, it is kind of a slippery slope. You got to be really careful what you talk about, what you say. I've definitely tried to dial down the cursing on my online presence, especially if I'm looking for a job later and they're going to see me throw the F-bomb every 2 seconds. That's not going to look too favorable, so I've been trying to dial that back. But yeah, I think I've been doing a pretty good job with my public image, I hope.
I think so.
Yeah.
Uh, and to end the interview, we just want to know how did you find out about the compendium?
Ah, yes. Way back in the good old days of R Megaton. Uh, One day someone posted, "Hey, have you ever heard of RJC?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." And someone linked me to your fusion video for Black Frost, the classic, you know. And I was like, "This guy's awesome. I want to do a podcast with this guy." So then I asked you, "You wanted to do a podcast with me and some of my old buddies?" And you're like, "Yeah, man." And then we did one with what's it called? With JohneAwesome, and that's just kind of how our friendship grew from there. Then he disappeared for a year, and then I was worried. I was like, "Whatever happened to that RJC?" And then he came back, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Thank God he's all right." So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm okay. I'm I'm sorry. I'm sorry to have worried everyone for that year I was gone, but
That's understandable. Sometimes you gotta take a little break, but I was just like, "Damn, is he all right?" Like I haven't heard anything.
yeah, it was just kind of a I don't know how to put it into words, so I won't try to.
It's all right.
Um. So okay, actually, I'm sorry. I did have one last question.
Yeah, go for it.
Um. I am probably gonna have to ask you this every time I talk to you,
Okay.
because I'm sure I asked you this each of the other podcasts we did.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say your name?
Rtyuiope.
Rtyuiope?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You know what? I had it then.
Yeah, you did.
Because
You did it. You did it.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to be sure before. I guess I just wanted to be sure after now at this point. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too late to be sure now. But...
It's okay. You can also do what's it called? Nith Grandbeard. That works too, or just Nick. You know, most people know my real name, Nick, so it doesn't really matter. You can call me whatever. A lot of people don't like using the Rtyuiope term, which is fine.
It's I mean, it's definitely a tough one.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it's good. I think it definitely generates interest for it too.
Yeah. How do you pronounce his name? Oh.
Yeah, I gotta check that guy out.
Yeah.
So that was our interview with Rtyuiope. We'll let him have some closing thoughts on this interview, and then we're gonna be taking a break, and then we'll be back shortly with more Persona 5. What do you have any last words for the interview, not forever?
Well, if I haven't already made a big enough of an ass of myself on here, I'd like to thank you for having me on here. It's been a blast. I enjoy answering questions. It's been good to talk to you again, especially since I was worried about you for the longest time. You guys should definitely check out my YouTube channel if you haven't. It's Nith Grandbeard or Rtyuiope, but if you don't know how to spell Rtyuiope, it's fun. Just look up Nith Grandbeard. It's a lot easier. And then I also want you to check out Howard Heyman's blog and Twitter. He's the one who definitely carries a lot of the research and development that goes into my videos, so definitely check out his Twitter and blog. He has his own reviews, his own opinions, his own thoughts, all very interesting stuff to read up on. And you can also follow me on Twitter to keep updated on my comic, what videos I'm making, or just, personal things like that. And I'd love to be back on here sometime in the future. That's pretty much it.
Oh, definitely for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us. That was the Rtyuiope interview. I want to thank everyone for being involved. Thank you to everyone who's sent in questions and interacted with us in the chat.
Yeah.
And thanks. This is RJC, and thank you for watching the Compendium.